So next time, probably. Some of you farther away. Well, we're taking the event, so you're going to be able to. People are going to be able to actually listen to what I say and see me. I think it's live, no? Yeah. It's broadcast live. Yeah, we're live. Great. So let me check how we're doing in terms of people. Are you ready? What time is it? So I might as well start, given the web, and then we just sign. Hi there. Thank you. I met you last year. Yeah, it's actually good here. Yeah. Hi. Hey. Do you want to join us for the program? I'm giving the spiel, but interesting.
I didn't like that Cambridge property.
I mean, that's your one.
You didn't like that Cambridge property?
You didn't, no, that's fine. No, I understand. I'm rich. There's nothing else you could use for that.
I mean, there's always something. Okay, so we might as well get it started. Thank you very much for coming tonight. It's a real pleasure to have you here. And it will be a pleasure to have you around as you, for those of you who are going to join us in the next year, in the next 2018 cohort. Scythe, SAIZ. You don't need to pronounce that name well to learn about the program. I'm originally from Barcelona, Spain, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about global focus or the global reach of the center in a while. But tonight it's really about acquainting ourselves to get to meet you, and you get to meet us and get a sense of what the program, the MSRED program here at MIT is all about. I do think it's an excellent program. I do think that most of you can benefit from this program, but perhaps not all of you. So it's also important not only for me to tell you what the program is all about, but for you to feel comfortable and confident that this is the right decision for you and that matches your interests and your career goals. So, this is the past cohort. It's a small photo because some people couldn't make it to the party. We had a party on a boat, and I think that this photo is here to help you guys understand that this is a very collaborative place. MIT, it's a very horizontal. We have very horizontal culture that's really coming from the engineering background of the school. We really tend to think about solving problems together in a collaborative way, and we learn from each other. So that horizontal culture is very, very important for us. So what's going to happen when you arrive here is that mostly I'm going to learn from you, and you're going to learn from someone else, and someone else will learn from someone else. And we create a network, a cultural network or learning network whereby we learn from each other. So that's kind of important. If you come to MIT, you have to come here and be ready to be collaborative, but at the same time, to really be collaborative with an objective, with a goal. It's not just about collaboration and just meeting people per se. It's just meeting people and get productive stuff done with them. Okay. So what is the MSRED program? I think we're very proud of this program because it's really a labor of love. This program is put together, it's been put together for 30 years. And we fine-tune the program with lots of love and TLC every single year. And I dare say that this is perhaps arguably the best program in real estate that you can find in terms of educational, educational values and educational value. And why is that? Well, I used to be teaching I used to teach at Wharton, MBA. I focused on real estate too, but we were very focused on a number of very specific aspects of real estate industry, mostly dealing with finance and some development. In our program, we really think about real estate as a holistic process. As you already know, because many of you, if not most of you, come from a real estate background, you really need to be a Renaissance woman and man to be able to deal with real estate. Why is that? Because so many things that go on, from politics to policy to land, to programming, to architecture, to design, to marketing, to finance, to selling, to underwriting the product, to loans, mortgages, and then maybe CMBS and more complicated financial structures that are derived from real estate. So already, all of you are already kind of Renaissance men and women who deal with the industry from a very holistic perspective. And that's the way in which we actually approach real estate here at the Center for Real Estate at MIT. So we're gonna look at the financial feasibility of projects, site control, planning and entitlements, what can do FARs and what kind of projects and products you can build on a piece of land, design and construction. So how do you do the massing and what's the program that's gonna get you better outcome? Debt and equity in financing, you're gonna have to, if you develop a project, you're gonna have to finance it somehow. Equity, debt, private equity, public markets, freight. So you have to think about this. Leasing and disposition. So who's going to buy the product? Who's going to lease the product? What's the leasing rate? What's the probability of renewal for a specific tenant? What makes tenants more likely to actually renew their leases? What's how does those probabilities change with the type of product that you're building and the type of seasonality of the product to the economic conditions? Say hotels are very different from from offices. So that's exactly what we're about, really thinking very holistically and in a very integral way to all the aspects that have to do with real estate development. You're at MIT also, which has a huge advantage because we do have collaboration with Sloan. So you can take classes not only holistically within the real estate arena, but also you can think about taking classes at Sloan on accounting, more finance classes, leadership, management, marketing. So it's not only about real estate. You come here because it's real estate plus Sloan, DUS, which is their School of Planning, Urban Studies and Planning. If you really are into entitlements and zoning, there's some classes that can be of benefit to you. And of course, if you're very desperate, you can also take classes at Harvard. And I'm joking, they're fantastic. They're a great asset. And I think we're a mutual asset. I think rather than a competitive relationship with them, we have what I would call a, collaborating competitive relationship in the sense that we are competing. And I think that makes us better. But at the same time, we really grow from each other. It's fantastic because I can go myself. I can go and sit to a class at HBS or at Graduate School of Design and learn something that I'm going to incorporate into my class, and you can do the same things as students. So that is kind of fantastic. Real estate also at the level where you want to be in the next 10 years, it's really about making decisions, okay? So you're here because you want to be making decisions at some point in your career, okay? Some of you are already at a point where you're making lots of decisions. Some of you make less decisions and, someone tells you or gives you assignments. But all of you, whatever your path, the road has been to date, I'm sure that all of you see yourselves within 10, 15, 20 years, 5 years, you see yourselves as being decision makers at some level or another. And in real estate, as you know, again, it's not just about the different breadth, the different very different elements that you need to understand, but it's also about how many decisions you've got to make, and they're complex decisions. So what product do you need to build? When you're going to build? So are you going to time the market? How are you going to build it? In terms of FARs or in terms of design, so on and so forth. How are the costs? How can you minimize costs? Who can you work with to get better product at lower cost? How is that going to be capitalized? Meaning that what's the value that you're going to get out of that product? What are the trade-offs in terms of risks and rewards? You're making choices about, say, going multifamily versus mixed use. What is the risk that you're taking by doing mixed use? But what's the reward in the case that you're successful? And how much the assets are going to be worth? Can you underwrite real estate? How can you underwrite it? How can you underwrite it with a cycle, the economic cycle? Because it's easy to just look at simple formula, but in 2 years when your product hits the market, you might be under a surprise. Okay? And then you move up to, as you move in your development path, then you're going to also not only think about decisions in terms of the products, but also decisions in terms of people. How do you manage a company with 50 people. Who do you, how do you need to delegate? What are the leadership, what are the ways in which you can foster leadership within your organization? What are the ways in which you can be a better leader? Okay. And, these are important decisions because real estate is very capital intensive firm. It's very capital intensive industry. So, if you thought about restaurants, you really need to know how to cook. But when thinking about real estate, you're sinking in millions and millions of dollars. You gotta make these decisions with a very well-informed perspective. So I tend to think of real estate and the way in which we train you, or we train the students to be successful in the real estate industry, as really the way in which you train a general or someone at West Point to be generals. No, you really need to train generals. And the way I think about this, we're not necessarily only going to train you to be successful in your next job after you graduate. We're training you to be successful as a leader 10 years down the road, as CEO, as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as someone who makes decisions in the next 10, 15, 20 years. So for us, it's not only about your next job, which is important, and we're going to help you get a good job. But for you to want to be part of MIT, you really want to think about, this is about your job 10 years down in the future, okay? And to get you there, to be that Renaissance man or woman, that general that takes decisions. If you're a sergeant, a platoon sergeant, you really know how to shoot and to move really well. And these are important skills. A general needs to know how to shoot and how to move the troops also, but they also need to understand logistics. They need to understand, the different terrains. They need to understand what the other armies are doing. So they need to have a much more, not only they need to understand the basics of the day-to-day operations, which they do to be a good general, but they also need to understand more broad, constructs based on economics. Construct based, what's the impact of the Federal Reserve Bank policies on housing prices? If the Fed goes very aggressive on bond purchase policies, what's going to happen to asset prices? Well, we have the answer. Finance, what's the impact of MBS market? How about Freddie and Fannie Mae? What's going to, if Johnson-Crapo had been passed, this is sort of a proposal from two senators to actually change, congressmen, to change the way in which we finance housing in the United States. What's the impact on the markets? How about the CMBS market? How about Credit Suisse and UBS, being not as active as they used to be in development projects here in the US? How about inflows of capital into Singapore? Construction methods, building types, site planning, building design, urban design, negotiating transaction documents. So really thinking about contracts and structuring transactions, JVs, joint ventures, and ways in which you can protect yourself and make sure that a relationship is a good relationship, and where incentives are aligned for all the parties that play into that relationship. Leadership, and that's sort of you should see from my discussion is that really we focus both, and I think that's the beauty of our program. I think that's the strength of our program. We have a number of people who are really doing transactions every day. Todd McGrath, who's a vice president at Boston Properties. John Kennedy, who's been a developer for the last 30 years in Boston. We have Chris Gordon, who's actually also a major developer or project manager of very large development and infrastructure projects. We have Kairos Shen, who used to be the city chief planner in Boston. Everything that you see built here in the city of Boston, he's approved, okay? And he's teaching here. Sarah Abrams, who's actually the real estate portfolio manager for Iron Mountain, which is really very large data center provider, lots of real estate invested. So you have these people who are doing the day-to-day operations and who are really smart to also look at the big picture. And then you have the academics. I think that combination, it's really unique. people like myself who are looking at big data and understanding market trends and looking at the yield curve and understand what the yield curve means for you guys doing business. Professor Bill Wheaton, who's actually invented, in a way, the modern study of real estate. Professor David Gellner, who's one of the most prominent scholars in real estate finance, and he's authored the most important, I would argue, book in real estate finance. Professor Walt Toros, who used to be at UCLA, he moved to MIT, who's also one of the most important academic researchers in using big data also to understand the MBS, the mortgage-backed securities, in general in the mortgage market. So, that, I think, it's a great combination of at MIT. We have both the practitioners, intellectual practitioners, because this is MIT, and we focus on skills and not stories, but also we have the big data people, and we marry this in a very intense way to make you a Renaissance woman or man. So let me motivate this a little bit, and let me give you a bit of a case study. The case study is like that. You're a developer, you want to build. That's and that's not just a random example. We were talking last week to Brad Powell, who wants to actually develop workforce housing in East Palo Alto, in San Francisco. So let's say that Brad finds a well-located 5-acre parcel of industrially zoned land that the local municipality would be willing to rezone to permit such housing to be developed. This municipality might be very, very sympathetic to workforce housing because it's expensive to actually live in San Francisco. The town planner wants to meet you to discuss the parameters of your development proposal, including how many units, so on and so forth. How do you prepare for that? Can you guys give me some kind of can you think about potential examples of questions that you have to be ready for when you talk to the town planner about this 5-acre sort of affordable housing development? No examples here.
Like impact on school zoning and community development.
Exactly, community zoning.
Existing
Infrastructures.
What is your actual definition of affordable?
Right, so finance needs to make sure that, where's the cash flows coming from? Section 8 is not going to be financed by tax credits, others.
What level of experience is doing workforce housing?
Exactly, experience and execution. Not only as a developer, but then who are you going to hire as contractors? And
what the market analysis is, who are your tenants going to be, who's interested in the project, who wants to live there?
Exactly, rents, vacancies, probability of renewals, so on and so forth. Others.
Political risks.
Political negotiations. And there's many others. Design. How are you going to design? What's the land? Any remediation problems? What's the egress entry? How are people going to circulate? What's the traffic implications? How are you going to mass the FAR? What's the FAR? Where you're going to put the mass of that FAR? Which mix of products are you going to mix it with? Other products. Say this is going to be shop, restaurant, or things like that. Again, where's the finance going to come from? Not only the cash flows, but where are you going to get the money to finance this? And how are you going to make for cash flows? If cash flows are volatile, how are you going to, what's your contingency plan in case that, the project doesn't fly in the way you expected? How long is it going to take? How much the length of the decision process that this municipality is contemplating is going to affect your risk and reward? So you see, just very, very simple 5-acre, just off the fly kind of discussion, and you already see all that level of complication. And again, that's in the way in which we think about real estate, very holistically, very comprehensively, taking into account all the different aspects of that complexity. How are we going to do this? Well, we start with the core classes. The core classes are really about, really going to be about us, the data people, the professors, looking at, again, it's West Point, and we're going to teach you about how Julius Caesar conquered the Gaul, okay? And tell me about, a bit more of a general market perspective. What's the impact of the yield curve on asset valuation, okay? Or how can you estimate the probability of renewal of a lease, okay? So real estate capital markets, Professor Wheaton is going to teach you about, all of the basic economic drivers of, the property cash flows and the cyclicality, the correlation, the covariance with the economy. Real estate finance and investments, you're going to learn to underwrite a real estate asset in a very comprehensive way, taking into account sort of contingency plans, so on and so forth, and simulate potential different scenarios. And real estate capital markets, you're going to learn about how do you finance real estate, and a little bit of the derivatives that are created. You create value as a developer, but that value then it's really disseminated throughout the economy via the mortgage system, transactions, private equity, investment funds, so on and so forth. So how do capital markets get to support the real estate basic market? And then you're going to also look at much more practical from that side perspective, from the U.S. economic and even global economic perspective to the side that you're developing perspective. So you're going to look at the real estate development class, focusing on pretty much development and products, which kind of products are you going to develop, what are the characteristics that make them interesting from a business perspective. You're going to look at real estate development, building systems, by understanding all the basics of a building and how the physical aspects of a building are going to interface with your decision making as a manager. And most importantly, you're going to undergo or just take the real estate development studio. That's 18 credits in the second semester, in the spring semester. And there you can think of this as a true, similar to actually a development plan. You're going to look at a site that the professor is going to choose, and a team of 4 or 5 of you are going to completely develop that site. It's master plan kind of development, so it tends to be relatively large. And then you're going to think about what product mix, how's the phasing, what's the zoning, where's the financing going to come from. So you're going to create a comprehensive development plan for a specific property that then the owners of the land or whoever's going to entitle you with the permits, they're going to come here and judge your plan and tell you where the plan is going to work or not. Okay. Then we look at the number of electives. There's a large number of electives. Again, all of these are very well targeted and tailored to get you there in terms of 10 years down the road, you being a leader in the real estate industry. Real estate ventures 1 and 2. This is a fantastic class that looks really at contracts and negotiations. So it's not quite about the law per se, but it's really about how to use the law to structure really profitable transactions between people and how to think strategically about the incentives within real estate development or real estate investment kind of perspective. Mixed income housing development, so really thinking about affordable housing if you're interested. Introduction to urban design and development. So again, if you don't have a background in design, you might want to know some things about how cities look like, why the products look like they do, and what are the, a bit of the things that are taken into account by both the architects, the developers, and the cities in order to approve a plan, a development plan. Leadership in real estate is going to be a class about psychology and behavior, and how to find your inner leadership voice. Entrepreneurship in construction and development, again, taught by a serial entrepreneur here in Boston, and whereby he's gonna share his insights. You're gonna see a lot of real estate leaders come to talk to you about entrepreneurship. Now you're gonna develop a business plan in that class. Innovative project delivery, again with Chris Gordon, who's got experience in large project management of large infrastructure projects. Quantitative tools for analysis, that's taught by Professor Gelder, and it's really about very complex Monte Carlo simulations where you're going to look at cash flows and you're going to mathematically model cash flows if you're interested in that. International housing economics and finance, which I teach, which is really about international real estate, focus on housing because that's the largest market. Mortgage securitization, MBS, how do you price MBS, CMBS, so on and so forth. Principles of corporate finance. For those of you, and I've got a I want to underline this, 40% of you are actually, or the students are actually come from what I call the real asset or the built environment side of real estate development. Some of you are engineers, architectural planners. 40% of you are actually going to be coming from the what I call the built environment side of real estate. The other 40% come from finance, economics, and 20% development, so a mix in between. Okay, but for those of you who come from architecture, planning, and design, it's a great program because you're gonna be able to take a principles in corporate finance class concurrently with a real estate finance class, and you're gonna get up to speed on basic finance, risk, reward kind of calculations. Project approval and zoning process, and again, we have who best to teach that than the person who's approved all buildings here in Boston, Carriage, the last 13 years. So high power guy, you see, very incredibly smart. Then, good taste also, you look at what he's approved in the city. Innovative product spaces. Let's start by Andrea Shiguto, a research scientist here, and really focusing. That's one of our new directions, really looking at innovation in real estate, what new products are coming up. And we're really becoming a hub of new ideas for real estate innovation and also real estate technology. Technology that then is applied to all old-fashioned real estate. So what is the classical course going to look like? Well, you're going to arrive here in late August, so you're going to have some kind of introductory period. I think it's 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, where we really boot camp you to death, and we give you a lot of tools, and you get to really bond with each other. The target class size is going to be about 30 to 35, 7, something like that. That really depends on the admissions and people who actually accept and so on, but target about 35, 30 to 40, anywhere there. So 35 of you very likely are going to come here in August and then sort of have very, very intense experience with one another and with some introductory materials. Fall semester, September to December, we have a miracle here at MIT, which is called IAP, Independent Activity Period, which means basically that January it's free. Many of you, I think 16 this year, we have 16 opportunities for internships this year.
This past year, 16 folks participated. This year, I believe we are at 12 and counting.
12 and counting of you are actually going to take advantage of this to go to a firm. We're facilitating these matches and work. Some of people are going to go to Dubai, some in China. They have opportunities in Panama, in China, in Dubai. Maybe you.
Kuwait is another new one this year.
Kuwait.
Texas we have several local as well, and there's a few others internationally, London, and potentially Peru that I'm working on.
I like how you put Texas together with internationals. Texas.
I'm too local.
But so that's an opportunity. Some people are going to do some different stuff. They might have a business to tend to, and they're not going to take that opportunity. And the spring semester from February to May. And then we got what I think it's a great feature of this program, which is the thesis. Now here, again, we want to think about not your next job only. We're going to care about your next job. You're going to get a great next job after MIT. But again, we're really also thinking about 10 years down the road. And I think the thesis is really, again, we're forming generals, not only sergeants. And I think the thesis really goes into that theme of having people who really want to be well-rounded and think about specific issues in the industry. What's the thesis process? Well, we have you write a thesis. And all masters in science, you're going to be a master in science at MIT. It's not a small feat. And all masters in science at MIT write thesis. And I think it's for a good reason. And again, it's because of that idea that we really form long-term thinkers. What do theses are going to look like? Well, there's 3 ways in which you can think about your thesis. Number 1, you really want to know a lot about a specific market or a specific topic that you didn't know a lot about. Say you want to move to Italy and you want to look at how about logistics properties in Italy. You want to work for Prologis in Italy. Then that's a great opportunity for you to get knowledge of that specific industry and even to market yourself a bit of as a person who's knowledgeable about that industry. That's number one motivation for a good thesis. Number two motivation is, well, it's a great networking opportunity to actually go out there and establish yourself, and establish a set of networks within that specific niche in the industry in which you're going to go. And again, sort of prove or demonstrate interest and expertise in that niche. So a lot of my students actually who work with me do that kind of thesis. And I have a Mexican student who's fantastic, Ariel Garcia Cruz. He went to Mexico, he went to work on private equity in Mexico, and he took advantage of the thesis to actually go and interview about 30 people working in finance, private equity, and development, investment side of development, REITs and FIBRAs, which is the REIT in Mexico. So he really took advantage of this process to really get acquainted, to get that knowledge out there, but at the same time to create relationships and a network. It's amazing the power of being a student at MIT. You're going to be surprised. The doors are going to open that are very difficult if you just pitch yourself to a CEO of a REIT. Probably it's going to be really hard for you to get, to get in there. But if you just send an email saying you're an MIT student working on a thesis and you want to interview them, oh wow, that's great. They really want to have you there. And the third type of thesis, and again, they're all adding value to you as an individual. The third type of thesis is a business proposition or a business plan or a business idea or a generic, it might be as a concrete site that you're looking at, or more generic about, specific kind of product that you want, a website that you want to open. That's kind of increasing. The last 3-4 years, we have maybe 1 or 2 people every year who are interested in actually sort of disrupting real estate, sort of creating new ways in which people can access real estate or buy or sell or lease or occupy space or design, and so on and so forth by using IT. Okay, so that can be the third type of thesis whereby you're really, in a way, putting together your own business plan. That thesis is going to be done by July, at the end of July, and then the alternative, what's become more and more of a frequent path for our students, is to actually 1/3 of our students actually do not work on the thesis in May, June, July, but they take an internship, and that's especially a good idea for international students who actually get a 3-month or 2-month OPT. But that's sort of more on the details. And then they come back for a 3rd semester. Either way, you can finish this program, and this program is designed to be finished within 11 months. Okay, and if you work fast on your thesis, even faster. Okay. But again, there's an option for a 3rd semester if you think that's too intense. Okay, or you want to take advantage of the fellowship opportunities and come back on the second semester. So philosophy, I've talked a lot about it, but again, knowledge, quite important. We form generals, not sergeants only. Skills, relationships, again, very horizontal culture. This is MIT. We're all engineers. We don't believe we're better than anyone else because, you learn from each other. And, engineers do know that they have to work in teams. We're going to put a lot of opportunities in front of you, so you're going to need to be proactive, okay, in taking those opportunities. Going to put opportunities in terms of knowledge, in terms of contacts, in terms of career paths, but you have to take advantage of those. So we need people who are also, who are going to be leaders. We're going to form leaders, but we need some kind of wish or desire to be a leader. Okay, so we need people who are going to be engaged and participating, but in a collaborative way. Okay. Career development. There's going to be plenty of opportunities, and we just hired a new career development person, so we're really reinforced on that. But we're going to, from self-assessment, you're going to work with a career development person and with one of our faculty to learn about yourself. There's going to be industry presentations during the 1st semester. Almost every week we have an industry presentation. You're going to talk to our industry partners. You're going to talk to our to people in our alum network. Alums here are incredibly loyal and they're incredibly high quality. It's a 1,000-strong alum network. It's relatively smaller than other programs, but I promise you that you're getting quality what maybe you don't get in terms of quantity. These are incredibly loyal, devoted, and incredibly smart, and people who are actually leaders wherever they went in the industry. So we're going to help you with resume preparation, presentation skills. We're going to have programs on that. And then again, these opportunities in the summer, IAP period, the January period. We run a career day with GSD. And there's plenty of opportunities for conferences, including some of them that we're actually, and I'll tell you about this later, that we're actually having here at the center. Where in the last 2 or 3 years, we really brought a lot of industry conferences. For instance, last year we had Nareem, Cornet, we just had UBS 2 weeks ago talking about the future of housing. And all of these engagements, we actually have the students participate. We meet the people who are participating in these conferences. Okay. In terms of careers, who are you? Well, again, you're very diverse. 40% of you come from architecture, design, engineering backgrounds. 40% of you come from economics, finance, marketing, more managerial. 20% of you come from development or a mix of the two in a way. And where are you going to go? Well, you're going to go, you come here because you want to be leaders and you want to go either up or shift in horizontally and then up, probably. Okay, so you want to be better, well-rounded to take on leadership positions, whether it's within your specific niche of the real estate industry or you want to move up within the real estate industry, but change kind of job. So maybe you want to work on development and be entrepreneurial about it. You want to work in finance, maybe private equity, or REITs, the more reporting aspect of real estate finance on lending, mortgage, banking, so on and so forth, MBS. You want to work on asset management and really be close to the asset and a higher level probably. You want to have a portfolio of assets that you are actually management. You want to be an entrepreneur, maybe you're a developer, you just might want to buy and sell or be just owner owner and derive the cash flows from a property. You're going to work on advisory services, working with JLL for CBRE, or so on and so forth, or for a major real estate company. Corporate real estate, you might work for Google and help them with their corporate real estate strategies. That's actually an untapped market. We actually now have a class of corporate real estate. It's a huge source of jobs, unbeknownst to many students. Or you want to be in investment management, so more generally look about opportunities and buy and sell so that you fit in a portfolio strategy from the perspective of your customers, investors. Why should you come to MIT, or what I think are other advantages of MIT? Well, the brand. I think we have you're always going to be a master's in science from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And that's really, really a mark of recognition for your career, for all your life. Not even socially. No, it's really a great way to open doors and to have people look at you in a very different way. I think that some programs have great brands, but our brand is really amazing in that sense. The brand is also associated with the perception of, and it's a true perception, of you're really smart and you're really sophisticated person. It's a 1-year program, so comparing to an MBA, and we can talk more about this later. But certainly we're going to focus on real estate, whereas an MBA, maybe there's 2, 3 classes or 4 classes you take on real estate. Then you're going to take other classes that are going to be interesting from a corporate ladder perspective. If you take accounting, marketing, management, they're going to be fantastic for more corporate ladder, broader. But if you're focusing on entrepreneurship, real estate, or career in real estate, there might be an advantage to the focus. And then in terms of content, I think I pretty much I said all that needs to be said. We try to be comprehensive. We cover a lot of what's going on in reality, but at the same time, we're rigorous. So we also think about the big picture, and we get you to be really focused on real estate and not generally other skills. Okay. So let me very quickly now do a very quick round, and maybe 5 or 6 of you. Can you tell me a little bit about you? No, because it's interesting. And I would have to have but can I get a sense of what are you after? If you think about, where you're coming from, what's your motivation to even consider this, and so can you tell me a bit, perhaps like 4 or 5 volunteers to get a sense of the home here, where you're coming from, and what's your motivation to be here? The free lunch, the free dinner.
Is there a free dinner?
No.
Even better. I work for the AKA VRA, so I used to work with CRE Open
Oh yeah?
House.
Oh my gosh. Very
And
smart.
I'm interested in middle income housing. Working with policies.
Fantastic. Anyone else?
I'm currently, I own a brokerage firm and I do sales, investment, and development. And I'm working with a lot of international clients, so I'm looking to create a fund, and thought graduate school would be a good way for me to live in the cities.
Fantastic. Any?
I work for a small real estate fund in Cambridge, and we do a lot of kind of entrepreneurial, non-institutional type work. And so I want to expand my horizons within kind of the world of private equity and finance, and work for a more institutional type firm.
Anyone else?
Hi, I am an architect, and I've been doing green building consulting, sustainability consulting for the last 10 years. So I'm getting more on the client side, but I really just would like to be on the owner client side, because that's where the decisions are really made.
Yeah, we have a lot of, especially architects who want to, you're doing a lot of the work, so you want to be empowered also of many of the decisions. So it's interesting, only 4 people, you see which nice cross section. And it's even more mind-blowing once you get to be here. Because it's 30 people and they're all, very diverse and international. So kind of like a lot of the value here is also, the relationships you want to create with your cohort. 35 people who are brilliant, who are coming from very different perspectives. You will learn so much about it. Let me pass it to Trish. Patricia is the MSRD coordinator. So she's going to be able to tell you a bit about the admissions and applications and so on.
I know I saw a lot of you today. I'm going to see more of you tomorrow and Wednesday. This will not be new information for some of you, and some of you will hear this again when we meet Tuesday, Wednesday. A lot of people ask, what's the most important part? I have a terrible answer for you. Everything. There's about 8 or 9 of us on the admissions committee, depending upon whether someone's on sabbatical or not. And what's most important to me might not be what's most important to Albert, or most important to David or Bill. So you want to be sure that your whole application is hanging together. You want to be sure that your GMAT or GRE score is such that we're going to be challenging you in class, but you aren't going to struggle. We don't have a minimum score, but we want to be sure that you're on the higher end of things. This year's student average is 700. Last year was 680, year before is 660. So somewhere in that range is really where we want to see you be, to be sure that you're going to be able to keep up with the coursework. We require 3 to 5 years of work experience somewhere in the industry. As Albert touched on, we have folks from all over the place: development, finance, design, architecture, consulting, law, brokerage, asset management, all sorts of areas. So somewhere in the industry, 3 to 5 years, please. Recommendations: 3, 2 professional, 1 academic. A lot of folks may not have a relationship with a professor anymore because it's been minimum 3 to 5 years since you've been in school. If that's the case, a 3rd professional recommendation will be fine. We would much rather see someone that can speak to you and your strengths and who you are, rather than someone that said, yeah, they did good in class and, they seem like a great person. That doesn't tell me anything. I can see that on your transcript. I want to see someone that knows you and who you are and what you can bring to the table. Your statement. Where are you coming from? Where are you going? Doesn't have to be set in stone, but I want a sense of, I've been in asset management. I don't want to do it anymore. I'd like to be a project manager, and here's why. This is what I want to do with it. I want to take my background that I have in asset management, get a more holistic view of the whole industry, especially in the development side, and then take it over to this other place here. Deadline, January 15th. I need all of your materials by that day. at 11:59 that night. You don't believe people send me something at 11:59? Microeconomics and basic accounting principles are prerequisites. If you don't have them at the time of admissions, you will be admitted provisionally, and you will be expected to take a course during the summer before you enroll in the fall. The course can be taken online or in person at an accredited university anywhere. To Albert's point, we're really making leaders out of all of you. So those are the things we're looking for, not just can you do the math, but are you bringing, what else you bringing to the table that's intangible. We're looking for people that are motivated, that are determined, that have those leadership qualities, that are collaborative, that can give and receive constructive criticism. A year is a long time to spend with 30 people, so we want to be sure that everyone is really going to get along well. So we're going to see those sorts of qualities in your recommendations and in your statement. And whether you can do the math, we're going to see in your transcripts and in your GRA or GMAT.
Yeah, so very briefly, I'm gonna, because I do want to have some time for questions, but let me give you a little bit of tidbits, like 4 or 5 tidbits about the Center for Real Estate. We're the oldest real estate center, Wisconsin probably, we're certainly the oldest MSRED program, I should say. We're the oldest MSRED program, founded in 1983 by Hans Spalding, an entrepreneur, a developer. Okay, so again, the DNA here is really entrepreneurial from the start. Here, based on the School of Architecture and Planning, that's also different from, say, an MBA program. So again, that makes us much more holistic. And the objectives of Mr. Spalding was to really focus on both education, research, and exchanging ideas between academia, students, and professors, and the industry. So really a platform to exchange ideas. So that's the way in which we think about ourselves. There's no, single, you cannot separate these three. They're entangled in the way in which we think about the program here. We do education, basically most importantly, our MSRD program, but we also do research. Some of us do case studies. People specifically who have more industry experience, they're really going to tell you about specific case studies. Those of us who really focus on big data are going to do stuff at more macro level that have to have an impact on education. So you learn something from the industry. And also I can tell my sponsors at Redfin actually what I'm finding, okay? And then industry. And here again, industry interfaces with education. We're going to have people from the industry come here. And we're going to have students then move to the industry. So it's a virtuous circle, okay? It feeds back into each other. And then same thing with research. I'm working on 3 projects with, one with CRE, Redfin, and BuildZoom.com, which is a startup in San Francisco. And I learn from them. They learn something from me in terms of the data projects that they're looking at, and that they don't have the skills or the expertise. And then we have them come here for conferences and specific seminars. Whereby we get ideas and we exchange points of view. Okay. So again, the 3 are important: education, research. We also have a professional education certificate, which some of you actually came this summer to take the professional education certificate, which is a 2-week, very concentrated sort of preview in a way of what we do here in our masters. Some of the initiatives that we have are, in terms of research, Urban Economics Lab, which I run, the Samuel Tackley Real Estate Entrepreneurship Lab, which has got a very large gift to study the Chinese real estate economy and real estate finance in China. We just hired a professor who's going to focus on real estate development in China. We have the professional education program, a real estate innovation lab run by Andrea Shegu. She's focusing on new products and technology that's going to be applicable to real estate. And the MIT CRE Real Estate Price Dynamics Research Platform, we've always been known for the study of the evolution of real estate prices and how to benchmark. So if you're an investor in private equity, you want to know how the market's doing, you need some kind of benchmark or measurement of returns. So here at MIT, we came up with the methodology to provide those benchmarks for the industry. So we've in a way, always been known for research that's applicable to for industrial purposes. Conferences, again, I told you some about them. Last year we had NARIN, we have stuff with RIFA, Real Estate Finance Association, a about innovation in real estate. We had UBS just 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. We CoreNet, the CoreNet. No one knows what CoreNet is. Anyone scouting me
Like
here?
corporate real estate.
Corporate real estate. Corporate Real Estate Association. We're going to have them actually in the spring. I should know. So my apologies. And then we have 2-day, or what we call the World Real Estate Forum, Global Real Estate Forum, where last year we had 250 real estate professionals from all over the world at the C-suite level. It was really fantastic. We had people, the CIO of real estate from ADIA. We're trying to get the CIO of real estate from Norges Bank, who's actually an MIT grad, for next year. And really high-powered people who are going to tell us about what they do in real estate and, how you make this contacts. And a real estate conference about real estate development in China, because again, we're going to become important. We interface with the industry also, not only in conferences, but we also have industry partnerships. And our industry partners, they're really friends in a way from the industry. What is this friendship? How does this friendship crystallize? Well, it crystallizes into they hire our students, they sponsor theses, or they get you ideas for thesis, they work with you on thesis, they do research with us, with some of us, they get advantages in terms of our professional education, they come to our conferences and network with each other, and they get to network with the students and with our MIT alumni base, and they get also exposure by being with MIT in terms of branding. Okay, we're also global. I left this for the end, but don't believe for a second that we're not a global program. Now, many programs claim to be global. We're just global. It's not a big deal. This is just simply we are global. I mean, I'm from Europe. None of this is going to be from China. Of course, we're mostly centered in the U.S., but certainly have a broad interest in other real estate arenas, or even working on case studies in different countries. So one of our professors, John Kennedy, is actually a developer here in Boston. Now he's working on real estate development in South Africa. So he's got local expertise, but at the same time, he's interested about the world and broaden your perspective. So we've done some kind of work, educational, research-wise, in all of these places during the last 10 years. So it's really now about your questions. That's my spiel, and it's time for your questions now.
Yeah. Can you tell us about some joint ventures that students went into after graduating?
Well, yes. One of them, we just started. So we have one student who's actually trying to put together a venture on blockchain, so using blockchain for real estate. We have another student, 2 students started a joint venture on real estate crowdfunding, source capital. Another 3 students have come up with a joint venture to actually, the idea is to sell art via real estate products, hotels, or Airbnbs. So you're going to have an Airbnb, and you're going to have that platform whereby you can match the work of an artist to your specific property. Over the years, we have, Delfin Wenceslao is actually developed in ASEANA, which is a large master developed city in the Philippines. We have, of course, Bill Gitema, who's developing smart developments, from the 90s, though. In Texas, we got, and the names sometimes escape me, green. Some of our ones are really active in green development, some of them in affordable housing. I'm terrible with names, but we have all breadth of, entrepreneurship activities.
Are professors ever involved?
Professors are sometimes involved. We tend to be more involved at an advisory level. That's something that we're changing, though. We just started DESEX this year, right now. I mean, the School of Architecture and Planning now has what we call the Design Accelerator. And that's going to be a platform for us to have these ventures. And that's very much, pretty much, I don't think anyone has, not even Stanford has one on their built environment. I think we're going to be the one school with startup accelerator geared towards the built environment. That's contemplating the participation of professors. Professors are notoriously rich in ideas are poor in capital, but the accelerator might be the way to get us into more of those collaborations.
And I think it's also an important note in terms of joint ventures within the School of Architecture and Planning where we sit. The graduates from the School of Architecture and Planning, of those that start their own companies, 76% are successful, which is quite a huge success rate. And I think it's important to know that because the students in the School of Architecture and Planning, not just us, but us in architecture, they're very entrepreneurial and they do collaborate with one another, whether it's within the MSRD program alone or with an urban studies and planning student or an architecture student to meld their ideas and become successful.
Yeah, they're amazingly creative. The architecture students here are unbelievable. And the planning students, the same thing. So there's a lot of cross-pollination because they're looking also for business skills. So we're seeing more and more of these relationships between our real estate students and architecture and planning.
Other questions? About the program, about admissions? You're gonna ask me anyway. No one. Interesting. No one has any questions about how to fund this program? I find that hard to believe. You wanna know anyway?
Sure.
All right. So we have a number of fellowships and fellow programs available. The Sam Tackley Fellowship, that falls within the Sam Tackley Lab. Urban Studies and Planning has 6 spots, so does the Center for Real Estate. We have an agreement with Prologis from the past couple of years. We have one Prologis fellow every year. That student tends to be focused on logistics and industrial real estate. We have the William Wheaton Fellow, named for Bill Wheaton. That fellow tends to focus more on alumni liaison work with myself and or Steve Weichel, who is our head of industry and alumni relations. Then we have some more smaller fellowships.
Blakely, actually, Jared Blakely.
That's a brand new one this year, that's right.
You just got
That one
that.
will be, for the first time, that will be assigned in this incoming admission cycle. He's an alum of ours, and that came about, a piece of land was gifted to us, and we found out this year that the land was sold, and, well, now I have some money to give to a lucky student.
So I would say that about 10, the larger fellowships, it's about 10 of them.
10 or so,
So,
yes.
I mean, and they're need-based, so. So we're going to triage your application in terms of the needs that you have.
And part of your application will have a fellowship application on it, wherein you will give us your information, the fellowship or fellowships for which you're applying, how you're currently funding your program aside from those opportunities. Some of those opportunities require a statement or a copy of your resume, so you'll include all of that, and that'll be a part of your application due on the 15th.
And the negative side to those 10 fellowships, that 20 of our students are mostly funding either themselves or via loans or from other fellowships from other institutions. There's certainly a number of them that come here with fellowships from different countries or institutions.
This year, I believe we funded about 16 students.
Yeah.
About 7 or 8 of them were more substantial. The others, I believe, received quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
Not quite as much,
Smaller.
not quite as substantial, but let's call it helpful, shall we? Anything else? Any other questions?
Yes, this isn't actually a science fair program, but how are you guys evaluating the IR sections of the GMAT?
I'm sorry, say that
The
again?
integrated reasoning sections of the GMAT, I know it's like sort of new, so a lot of people are still look at it, but just curious if you factor.
That was just this past year, the year before, right, with the
Yeah.
introduced that piece? Where it's still sort of new, we're still sort of figuring out where that fits for us. The program is very quantitative, so we want to be sure, at least on that piece, that you're fairly strong as well. But the integrated reasoning part, of course, plays in because now you're giving context to all of that. So we want to be sure that we're trying to be mindful of that as it's a new piece and we're seeing how our new classes are scoring, and that's helping us determine where those numbers should be falling. If that's helpful. Yeah. You first, and then.
Do you look to take a certain amount of international students every year versus local US?
We do not have a set number. We're not checking off a box where I need 6 developers and I need 8 women and I need 12 international students. We want folks that can do the work and that are going to be contributing to the class. Historically, it's been about a third international, but the past 5 or 6 years, it's been about half to 2/3 international. And it all really depends on your skill set.
Do any of the students work like either part-time or full-time? And what's your thought about that?
They do not, because this is really a full-time job. If you look on our website under curriculum, you'll be able to see some of the syllabi. The finance course, for example, is a 12-unit course. You're in class for 3 hours a week. That counts for 3 units. The other 9, you're outside of class working on your coursework. Just for that one class, you're on average spending 9 hours on your homework. I know this past week, students spent about 16 to 17 on their economics homework alone. So this really is more than a full-time job. And I have seen students attempt to work while they complete this program. And I know that they're working because they have this very glazed look on their eyes. They're not really sure what day of the week it is. They complete the program, but I'm honestly not sure how much they're getting out of it, both from their classwork, interaction with their classmates, and the industry professionals we put you in front of, which is in 11 months about 200 to 250 people. So if you're going to be here, it might really be worth taking the time to really put your all into this.
This is kind of related to work, but how many electives are typical students able to squeeze in every semester?
It's going to depend student to student. Some have, depending upon where your acuity is for things like finance or for development. If your courses are all finance and that's where your strength is, it might take you less time than if your strength is more in development. I've seen students do up to 70 hours of coursework. But some can really only carry 40. So it's really going to depend on what you're comfortable with and what you're comfortable with. Marwan, you have a question?
Dual degree programs, can you talk about that?
Yes, dual degree is an option. You can take the MSRED program concurrently with the Masters in City Planning program in Urban Studies and Planning, and sometimes with architecture, in School of Architecture and Planning. There's a number of students every year that are dual degrees that are part of the cohort. The master's program at the MSRED program is a 1-year. Urban Studies and Planning, to use as an example, is a 2-year program. If you do them concurrently, it takes about 2.5 years. If you're coming in from outside MIT, you can apply to both programs at the same time. If you're accepted, you can choose which one you'd like to start first. What happens more frequently is students are accepted to one or the other, and then during their first fall semester, apply to the second program from within MIT. You'll complete coursework for both. You can't double count classes. So part of your application as a dual degree student is a proposal that says, all right, here's my coursework and here's how I'm going to get it done in 2.5 years. And we actually have a meeting about that every fall for interested students, so it's certainly an option.
The dual degree can be done with local universities as well, right? Harvard, MIT.
Just MIT,
Okay.
just within in the universities. Yeah. Anybody else? You're certainly going to get to talk to us in a few minutes when we all have a bite and meet some faculty and such. So if that's all for now, we'll see you in just a few minutes in the student lunch.
Thank you.